Hi and welcome to Split the E podcast. I'm your host Sean O'Grady. In this podcast we split the entertainment by taking the artist out for a pint to get to know him a little bit better. My guest this week is a magician, Rob Teszka. How are you?
I'm doing alright, how are you?
Yeah, cheers man.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming out and
No, not a problem.
sitting down and having a beer with me.
I'm always delighted to have a meeting that happens at a pub.
Oh yeah, like everyone, right? And except alcoholics. No, I'm joking. How did you start being a magician? Tell us the story.
Right. Well, as I was saying just before we started recording, this is a story that I've told so often that it's one of those stories that I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah.
We've got
It's a
those
dream.
stories. People,
It's a dream,
people ask
yeah.
you this so often that you're just like, now there's a script that I've like memorized. But I started out when I was a kid.
Cool.
A lot of magicians do. My parents got me a magic kit. I maybe was somewhere between the ages of 8 to 10.
Like for Christmas or something? Or?
I don't even remember. It was
Yeah.
that long ago.
Yeah.
30 years ago. It was one of those, I still remember the kit though. I've been trying to find it again.
Yeah,
I lost it long ago. I would really love to find it again. Just like, this is where it all began. It was like this little briefcase, like a little black briefcase, and you open it up and it had a bunch of stuff in it, like, gimmick playing cards and plastic things that worked by themselves. All of it was like easy stuff that a kid could do for magic. But the thing that was really interesting about it was that the case itself had tricks built into it.
Ooh.
Which I've not seen in a lot of like modern magic kits. Which is like,
Okay.
like the trick was built into the case itself, so you could do extra interesting stuff. Really old school magic principles as well.
It's like a box of operation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I played with it, forced my parents and my brother to watch.
Be my audience, right?
Hey, I'm going to do this trick. And probably didn't understand exactly how it worked, but they were kind and clapped anyway.
Yeah.
And I played with it for, I don't know, up to a year before losing interest.
Like any child, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until a bit later in school, maybe grade 6 or 7 or so. So then I'm what, 14 maybe?
Cool. Yeah.
13. And there's this kid, I think his name was Adrian Van Houten.
Okay.
And he does magic at school. Like he does it for the school talent show and stuff like that. But more importantly, he does it at recess.
Was he the same age as you, or
I think
was
he
he
was
a little older?
I think he was actually 1 year younger than me, maybe.
Oh no way! Cool.
But he showed a trick, and I'm pretty sure it was just like the most basic trick in magic of like, here's a coin, now it's vanished.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I was like, how? I want to know how. So I came up and I'm like, hey, like I was interested in magic. I had a magic kit. I knew how to, I performed all of the stuff that worked by itself, but I want to learn what you just did. 'Cause
Yeah.
that didn't work by itself. You were doing something. I wanted to learn sleight of hand, basically. And he said...
You want to rob people, right?
Well,
I'm joking.
he looked at me and he said, no. Right? I'm not going to teach you.
The magician never tells his...
That's how
Yeah.
that was the first time I had that lesson of a magician doesn't reveal their secrets.
Yeah.
But he said no, and I was like, what do you mean no? So I went to the school library. I took out the book on magic that the school library had. Remember libraries? To
Yeah.
look for it in the card catalog.
Yeah.
And I learned that trick in the book, and I learned every other trick in that book. When I ran out of tricks in that book, I went to the town library, took out every book on magic they had. 793.8. That is the Dewey Decimal Number System in a library for magic books.
Holy fuck.
Still in there.
Yeah.
And essentially, I taught myself magic out of spite. Because this
Unreal.
kid said no.
Unreal.
And I'm glad he said no, because if he said yes, I'd know one coin trick.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And then sort of just kept going from there.
And how did you just obsession?
100% obsessed. I hyper-focused on this like nothing else. I was doing it almost in a vacuum, because there was a local magic community in British Columbia at the time, but I didn't really know any of them. So
Yeah.
I would go to the magic shop on Granville Island every once in a while.
Yeah.
And the demonstrator, the guy who worked behind the counter there, who could demonstrate any of the magic tricks and try and sell them to you, his name was Joe. And he was the kindest man that
Shout out to Joe.
ever known.
Yeah.
You know, wherever you are, Joe. I like the shop's been sold multiple times.
I was going to say, is it still going?
It still exists there. It's called
wicked.
Clownin' Around. It's
Unreal.
run by a guy named Quincy and his wife, and it's still the only magic shop in British Columbia. And now I think the magic shop in Alberta closed down, so it's the only magic shop in Western Canada.
Wow.
Upstairs
so it
in the
must
kids'
be
market.
a tight-knit community then.
Yeah, well, and also, like, how am I going to find them? This was at the dawn of the internet.
Yeah.
So, like, again, I was looking for books with a card catalog.
You were
right?
growing up in this is in Alberta, right?
No. This is I'd already moved to British Columbia.
Okay, yeah.
So I'd moved out from Alberta when I was 4 years old. So we moved to Mission, which is a bit of a ways away.
Yeah.
But we'd go into Vancouver now and then.
Unreal.
And Joe, the demonstrator there, like, encouraged me to keep learning, and he recommended books,
Yeah.
rather than just trying to sell me more plastic shit.
Yeah.
And he would, like, give commentary on how I did stuff. So between Joe and, like, the dawn of the internet, I found the About Magic forum.
Okay.
Like, it was just like a forum, like one step beyond BBS systems from the old days. And, like, I met Opie Houston, who was the president of the Texas Houston Ring of the International Brotherhood of Magicians. And there's just this old dude who hung out on this forum for magicians and, like, encouraged newcomers who came to magic to, like, write out their scripts and recommended books and sent.
Are they always, sorry for interrupting, are they always recommending you to look it up and do your research and due diligence?
Always.
They're never going to tell you
Well,
this is how it works?
It's
or?
different now. It's different now. Like, anyone can go on YouTube and look up someone who will teach every step of the trick. But I had to do the work. And so I developed a really...
I think that's a better way of learning.
It 100% is, because I have my own style now.
Ooh,
right?
Yeah,
when you learn from watching someone else, you mimic them.
Yeah.
You do the things with the same timing. You do the things with the same cadence of your voice.
Yeah.
If you're reading it, if you're reading a description of the mechanics of how a move is supposed to work, or why a routine is structured the way it is, and there's 3 illustrations, and that's it, you figure it out for your own hands. You figure out how the timing works for you.
Nearly to a point where you could do it blindfolded.
Right.
And some tricks are blindfolded.
Well, there certainly are.
Yeah.
So I think it was a sweet spot for learning magic, but I learned it in a very unusual way. And I kind of like, I wish that I had found the local magic community earlier, because there's a huge one. Vancouver is a huge, big city for magic. There's multiple, like, magic societies and clubs here.
Yeah.
We have the cruise ships, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the performers who perform magic will come in and out on the cruise ships. There's a lot of corporate work here for magicians.
Is there like do they do one in the convention center? Is there like a conference for magicians?
There's a conference that rotates around the Pacific Northwest, the Pacific Coast Association of Magicians.
Yeah.
Been doing it for decades. I think one of the most recent ones was the 90th, just last year. And like it'll go up and down the West Coast. There was a local one that was called the 3 of Clubs, because it was organized by 3 of the different local magic clubs. Yeah. We're magicians, not comedians. So.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
When you base or to get your own style, who were you influenced? Because like I know if you take, for example, Darren Brown is more like psychologist and headwise, and then David Blaine is more like sticking shit through his. It's kind of like extreme, nearly like violent in a sense.
It's it's funny you mentioned Darren Brown, because he's one of the people who influenced me.
Netflix shows, the one where he kind of like convinced the guy that he was the last person. That was amazing.
The experiments, where there's a global apocalypse and like zombies, and he's just like. I met a couple of the production team behind that show, including one of the hypnotists that was like part of Darren Brown's team to like help induct people under hypnosis.
Have you ever done hypnosis, or can you do it?
I have tried hypnosis, and I have been hypnotized myself. I'm actually really suggestible. It makes me I love watching magic, especially when I have no fucking idea how it's done.
Yeah.
Like I live for that moment because I've learned so much. It's rare enough now that when I see magic that I have no idea, I treasure that and remember that because I'm like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to make people feel.
That brings you back to your kid opening the box and having the tricks inside the box.
100%.
Yeah.
It's also a really, really valuable reminder of what I'm trying to do for other people.
Yeah.
Right? Just like, if I get too far up my own head,
and how structural it is then as well.
Yeah. But Darren Brown is a big influence. Earlier than that, I was really into bar magic. It was a style of magic that developed out of Chicago.
Okay.
And it was very casual.
Is that like basis? And just to jump back, actually.
Yeah.
As a child, I know you were doing the coin and hiding the coin, but for me, I think like card tricks. When I think of magic, I go straight to card tricks.
Yeah.
Well, is that kind of like the gateway into?
For a lot of people, I got into card magic really hard, and I studied it. So.
And does that go back into your pub magic?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of bar magic is casual card magic.
Okay.
Just on the bar top here. But it goes back to that like learning without influence from local magicians. One of the first serious magic books I got was when they still sold them at like Chapters.
Okay.
The bookstore. And it was a book called Expert Card Technique. And I had no idea that this book is intended as like an advanced course in sleight of hand for cards.
Okay.
Like I was just like, all right, this book seems to teach card tricks, I'll get it. And I studied it like age of 14, 15 or whatever, and I learned advanced sleight of hand and like just hyper focused until I was able to get it pretty well. And it wasn't until way later that people were like, how did you start with this book? No one
just
starts
on the off chance.
No one starts with this book. People start with like.
When you were reading it, were you like, oh my god, this is way too advanced, or you were just like, yeah, this makes sense?
I was a really heavy reader as a kid.
Yeah.
I read books voraciously.
Yeah.
So the fact that this book had like unusual vocabulary and was hard to read didn't really faze me.
Yeah.
Because I mean, to be clear, I did not spend a lot of time with friends or going outside and doing things, and I did not play sports.
Okay, right.
Like, I stayed indoors, I read books, I played computer games, and I practiced magic.
Oh, nice.
It is a lonely, nerdy, impossibly nerdy pursuit. So, like, nothing in this book fazed me, but no one gave a shit until I was able to actually perform it competently enough.
No, now they're giving a shit, right?
Yeah. Well, a lot of magicians start out as nerdy kids who learn magic because now they have something they can do that other people can't.
Exactly.
It's a social crutch. It's something to make people go, oh, you're interesting.
Yeah.
Even though you might be an awkward dork with no personality traits other than I do card tricks. It's still something.
Yeah. You're a nice guy though. We had a good conversation before the podcast. Don't put yourself down.
It took me a while to get to that point. I was extremely introverted.
Yeah. But there's different traits, different strokes for different folks, isn't that what they say?
True enough. Honestly, I think like learning magic and learning how to perform helped me not necessarily
unravel yourself.
Yeah, not necessarily get over my introversion because I don't think it's a thing to get over. Like that's a personality trait that people have, and I'm still an introvert. I recharge by having alone time, but not being able to interact with people without being awkward and being uncomfortable standing in front of people and talking, that's something that is useful to work on. And
100%.
Magic gave me this tool to come out of my shell and be comfortable.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's pretty brilliant. Going back to the bar tricks.
Yeah.
Explain it a little bit more. And if you would like, we're in a bar, and if you want to do a trick, That'd be
Absolutely.
cool. You can clear the table, or if
No,
you
we
need to.
leave everything on.
No,
That's,
yeah, I'm
Bar
excited.
Magic, so Chicago was a place that started out with a huge magic scene. A lot of really influential magicians went out of Chicago, and one of them actually that is another one of my main influences is a magician named Eugene Berger.
Okay. Yeah.
Who, if you ever look up a picture of him, you'll be like, oh yeah, that dude's a magician.
Okay.
He has a massive white beard, little round glasses, and a twinkle in his eye that suggests he's
A wizard.
something. You know, an absolute wizard.
Yeah.
He has this deep, profound baritone voice that allows him to just create a sense of magic.
And capture the room, right?
Exactly. And he became known for doing really like storytelling-based magic, which I really like. I like storytelling and talking about something that I find interesting and want
Is
to talk
that
about.
also like capturing the crowd to down this story while the trick is going this way? Is it a
100%.
diversion, right?
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Magicians call it misdirection.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different versions of it, and one that I really like is that if you give people something interesting to talk about and think about,
Yeah.
who gives a shit how the trick is done?
No, I know. Yeah.
But he comes from a tradition of Chicago bar magic where magicians would perform for tips in bars. And if I grab a deck of cards out of my bag here, I can show you
Yes.
an example of what I mean. These are a bit dingy now, which is why I don't mind using them in the pub. But can you shuffle? Do you want to give them a shuffle?
Yeah.
If you can't shuffle, just put them in a different order.
I'm not the best at shuffling at all.
You're doing fine. Like, that's a nice overhand shuffle. There's people who just wash them around on the table. It doesn't matter.
We play poker every now and again, but it just turns into us just drinking beers.
I mean, isn't that the point of a poker game?
I think it is. I'll throw these over here. Thank you.
There we are. So we've got a couple of these, and if you'd like, you can take one. And don't let me influence your choice.
Pick a card, any card at all, right?
Never fucking works that, right?
Yeah.
All right, have a look. You want to show him?
I'm going to show the camera too,
All right,
right?
I will look away. I'll look away. And you're all right?
Yeah.
So I'll pop it in here.
I just for the people that are listening to on Spotify, I showed the camera guy, my brother, so he's going to second this afterwards, right?
Brilliant. All right. Well, you'll
Put it
pop
in
back
anywhere?
Anywhere you want. So it's still sticking out there. Just that's fine.
That's fine.
We'll shove it inside, and the job now is for you to find the card.
Oh shit!
All right.
I have to find. You're letting me do
Basically, if you touch your card within 5
yours.
seconds, I'll buy you a drink. All right. 1, 2, 3.
Can I look through
4, 5. Too late.
Oh, fuck.
But I cheated you. I made sure that there was not possible for you to win. Look under my pint.
Fuck off.
What was the card? What was the card?
5 of diamonds.
Have a look.
Ah, fucker. So the story, I like it.
Well, that didn't even have a story. That's just
No,
me
I
doing
know,
just
yeah,
like
yeah.
plain old bar magic. So that's the kind of magic that I really got into when I
Fast
started
paced.
out. Yeah, it's fast paced. It's quick, so it happens in the context and environment of a bar. There's not a lot to think about, but I'm still giving you something to do, as part of misdirection.
Exactly.
But my style has developed since then, but I still maintain these skills.
That's it. The first bit of magic that I've ever seen in person, obviously like going to the library and there was a showcase as a child.
Oh yeah.
But in Vancouver, it just so happened we were camping and my mate's brother, he was doing magic and he was doing this like magic trick that he ended up like digesting the card and spitting it out. And we were like drinking while we were camping, but it was like, what the fuck? All of this magic tricks is like, how did you do that? Do that again, you know what I mean?
I love that stuff.
It's the wanting to know the answer is the magic about it, right?
I mean, that's where magicians come from,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's seeing another magician and going, how is that done? And wanting to know bad enough that you're willing to dig through a card catalog.
100%. Before the podcast, I was saying like the history of magic, it goes back further than the Greeks.
Oh yeah. I've heard people refer to magic as the second oldest profession.
No way.
We all know what the first is, right?
Yeah.
But like the history of magic is kind of murky, and people have talked about like
It goes on to Palestine and stuff like that.
yeah, like it depends on what you consider magic. Like what we consider magic as like a performance art for entertainment. That started existing at some point,
It
but
even
beyond that,
ties into religion.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it was being used as part of demonstrations of powers in temples.
Yeah.
Like there's
witches getting burned and stuff.
The example of like temple doors opening by themselves through a hidden system of hydraulics, or like pots setting themselves alight, lanterns, by themselves. You know, these, I guess we consider these magic effects or special effects, but they would have been part of the like ritualized religious service.
That's so cool.
One of the earliest descriptions that exists is of an Egyptian sorcerer named Dedi. He's written about in something called the Westcar Papyrus, this scroll that they translated, and it describes Dedi as being some kind of like court sorcerer who performs tricks, including one where he rips the head off of a goose and then puts it back on and it comes back to life. Things like that. But the way that people wrote about things like that and the way that that papyrus is written, it's unclear whether this is a fictional story or a real account of something that someone saw.
Yeah.
Right? The Romans, there was a Roman historian who wrote about seeing what were called the acetabulari, which means the vinegar balls men.
All right.
Which sounds like they need to have something checked out by the doctor. But you've ever seen the cups and balls, right?
Where like the
three cups.
Yeah.
Where's the ball?
Yeah.
Well, in Roman times, those cups would have been bowls used to store vinegar. And so they were called the vinegar balls men because they had these vinegar cups and their balls were disappearing, transporting, and multiplying underneath them. And this Roman historian described seeing these performers. So like, maybe that's probably the earliest record we have of someone describing magic that was performed to make money.
Yeah.
Whether it was to entertain people or whether it was to scam them with like the key and shell game or the matchbox that you've seen.
Or even nowadays on Instagram you see that cornetto or the ice cream.
The ice cream man, yes. Oh,
yeah.
the Turkish ice cream man who are messing around with people all the time.
100%.
Oh yeah. Yeah, another perfect example of like people using something that feels magic, sleight of hand, misdirection, messing with people for entertainment.
I've seen one where this kid wasn't having any of it. And
he just grabs it.
Or a big old man grabs the fucking, he literally like rips it off.
People get mad. Well, people get mad for magic as well. Like, you know, people don't like feel like they're being fooled or made a fool of.
Yeah.
So it's always a bit tricky. You have to
Going
judge.
back to the a lot of people are anxious and they don't want to be made a fool out of in front of everyone.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to be very careful. I think as a magician, you have to be kind. You have to be receptive to people who don't want to participate.
Yeah.
But like not everyone thinks that way. Like depending on how someone learned magic and what culture they learned it in, like the 80s comedy clubs were very in-your-face, aggressive, and insult comedy and taking advantage of your spectators. And there's also like, you know, so it makes people feel unwelcome. It makes them feel like you're making fun of them rather than entertaining them with a magic trick.
Yeah.
But there's also like people who challenge a spectator, right? And then it becomes like, if you can't catch me doing this, then you're an idiot. Which is like, I guess maybe if you can do it in a very cheeky way, sure, but not everyone can pull that off. And now you're just making people angry because you're pushing around a bit. So I try and be, you know, pretty chill and genial and casual, but there are other approaches that work for other people in different situations. But
100%.
I mean, like, I don't know. I've been punched in the face before for performing
No
magic.
way.
Yeah.
Over what?
It was for the dumbest reason. Like, it's not anything like what you're thinking.
I was just thinking, have you ever done street performing?
I tried once or twice. I found it one of the most terrifying things I've ever done, and I stopped. I quit.
Yeah.
I want to try it again. A magician who's a friend of mine has encouraged me always to try it.
Yeah.
And he was a busker. We met on Granville Island,
Yeah.
during magic, and he says it's the best way to learn the absolute basics of how to engage your audience and what you absolutely need to do to make your trick work, and cut out everything else. You have
Cut
to
the
strip
fat.
it. You strip it down to the bare bones to
Yeah.
make it the best show you can. That moves quickly enough. That keeps people engaged enough. They want to give you money at the end. At the end, good night.
Yeah.
But when I first started out, as like a 16, 17-year-old kid, trying busking as someone who's still nervous and who still like looks down at their hands while they're doing fancy cuts with the cards, not engaging, people leave, doesn't help for the old social anxiety. No, thank you.
Yeah, eye contact and introducing a person, come help me, and all of this.
Took me a long time to learn all of that stagecraft stuff, and honestly, it was not in magic that I learned most of that. It was in like doing theater, other performing arts. Like I did a lot of school plays and things.
Cool.
It wasn't until later that I came back to magic with this new approach.
And
but I have nothing but like 100 respect for buskers.
For street,
They do one of the hardest.
My last couple of guests that I have had on is like a rapper, MC Save the Whales, or Noble NA on Spotify.
Oh yeah.
But he started off rapping on the street and stuff like that, and then on YouTube now you see a lot of street performers and stuff like that. But going on, when you were your style was pub magic, and or bar magic.
This was the kind of magic that I was doing for my classmates at school.
Yeah.
Right.
How old were you when you were like getting into this?
When I was really, it would have been high school.
Yeah.
It would have been like grade 7 up to grade 12.
Yeah.
I was heavy into performing magic for my classmates, practicing it. So what, 15, 16, 17? To the point where in grade 11 and 12, the school asked me to perform at like fundraising dinners that they were doing. And I started doing it just what we call walk around, roaming magic, where you do close-up magic for each table. So there was like one where we had like a Victoria Day tea thing for all the parents to come in and donate money to the school. The Christmas banquet at the end of the year, so I'm roaming around performing, and that was my first exposure to hecklers.
Oh,
right?
fuck.
Because
Yeah.
classmates, they're my friends, At best, they're going to make fun of me in a good-natured way, but I'm still going to do something that they think is at least interesting or impressive. But a bunch of drunk parents who don't want to see any of the kids from the school at the fundraising dinner at the end of the year. And suddenly
leave me
one of
alone,
them
go play with
comes
your
up,
kids. Yeah.
Hey, do you want to see a card trick? And no,
Yeah,
no
yeah.
way. Some of those parents were incredibly mean to a child.
I could imagine so. Yeah.
Right? But that's when I was like, okay, what I do doesn't work for everybody. And it was kind of disheartening. Like, again, social anxiety, introvert kid. This is the thing I was using to get out of my shell, and suddenly there's these adults who are dismissing me.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that doesn't feel good.
Assholes, right? Yeah.
So that's when my interest started to shift a little. But I still was heavily into it once I went to university. I kept practicing it, but I was doing it more for my own amusement.
Okay, cool.
Right? I was just like, okay, clearly I can't perform for people very well. Now I was living in Vancouver. I had moved away from Mission to residences at university.
Yeah.
And like I was practicing magic really heavily, going to the magic shop every week, hanging out with other magicians, learning magic and trading secrets on Granville Island and wherever else we would meet. So that was a really rapid development for me in learning a lot of magic. But I was performing it the least, because I wasn't really performing.
Studying, really.
Yeah.
Unreal.
So like almost everything I learned that I still use to this day happened within that period.
Oh, class. When did you, or how did it come to, okay, this is where I need to jump and start performing?
It was almost by accident.
No way. Best things happen. Happy accidents.
Yeah. So as university progressed, I got more interested in academia. I was in this interdisciplinary program called cognitive science,
Cool.
which was studying how the mind works.
Going back to the Darren Brown.
Yeah. So it was a combination of psychology, philosophy, computer science, linguistics, all of these different approaches to understanding what thinking is, how it works, how you can make it and understand it. And I graduated and I was volunteering in a lab that did research using eye tracking. It was trying to understand how attention works.
Yeah.
So when when our brains decide to pay attention to something, how does that process work?
Yeah.
How can we measure it? Well, one way is by what you're looking at. So they had these cameras that look at your eyes. They go 1,000, 2,000 frames per second, blindingly fast. They can track every blink, every movement of your eye, and use that to judge based on what you're looking at, what you're paying attention to.
Yeah.
And I had stopped. I was still interested in magic, for my own hobby, but I had given up on doing it ever professionally. But while I was in that, a visiting researcher from England came over, and we were at the pub doing a lab meeting. And he brings out a deck of cards and starts doing card tricks.
No fucking
And I'm
way.
like, oh yeah, I know some too. And so while this visiting researcher was there, we met, bonded over card tricks, and he said, I'm running a lab out in England, and we're interested in studying how magicians manipulate attention. And so I got involved in the study as one of, I assume at the time, one of very few people that was skilled both at magic and at attention research.
Oh my God.
Purely by accident. And so I got into it.
That massively must play into your act too, knowing that.
The idea of the intersection between psychology and magic
Yeah.
colored and informed the presentation for my magic up till this very day. And the Fringe show that I'm working on now is about my experiences in academia trying to study how magic works.
Fuck. And being a book nerd too, you're liking that storytelling.
Yeah.
It's literally, this path has nearly like already paved itself for you without you knowing. It's the trifecta.
The career dropped into my lap.
Wow.
It was incredible. And so I worked at the lab at UBC for another season, doing this research study for, his name is Gustav Kuhn. He's published a number of books on magic and psychology.
Yeah.
One just came out. It's specifically for magicians, so I can't recommend it to the public.
Oh.
But
Any of you magicians out there, yeah.
he did release an earlier book called, I believe, Experiencing the Impossible.
Cool.
Studies of magic. I mentioned in it because I contributed to some of the research, but it's a fun read if you're interested. So he basically said, come over here, I'll be your PhD supervisor.
Yeah.
But get a good master's first.
Yeah.
And it's in England. So having been given this opportunity, I was like, okay.
Brilliant.
So I spent all of my life savings until that point.
Just moving over to England.
To move over to England. My parents helped out because they're like, oh, it's something. To be clear, my parents weren't necessarily happy about this. Remember, I'm a child of immigrants. I'm a Polish kid, and my parents are from Poland. There's like, you have two choices. You can be a doctor or a lawyer. And they're like, you want to be a magician?
Performing?
An academic? Are you sure? Maybe like take some medicine classes just as a backup. But they helped out. They
must have been happy with the attention span aspect of it, though.
I think so. I mean, like they were interested. And once they saw some of the stuff that I was doing, they were like, "Oh, okay,
unreal.
He actually knows what he's talking about."
Big time, yeah. You've got an award, the Fraser Circle, the Fraser Magic Circle.
Oh yeah, it's Fraser Valley Magic Circle Award.
Sorry, I messed that up. But how did you end up getting that, and what did you have to do to get that?
So every year, the local magic clubs run...
Is it a contest?
Yeah, they run a competition.
Oh, cool.
So they run competitions every couple of months or so. There's different themes throughout the year. So there's like a close-up magic competition, stage magic. The award that I won from them was for creativity. It's the shape of a light bulb. So you're holding it over my head as if I just had a great idea.
Yeah.
And it's basically by nomination. So the other members of the club had seen me perform something that they thought was creative, and they nominated me for it.
Oh, unreal.
It was something that I had done.
Is this in your Fringe show as well?
The trick.
Yeah.
No. It's a trick that almost can't ever be repeated. It was something that I won at a magic competition for the Pacific Coast Association of Magicians that I mentioned earlier. Yeah. It was my first time ever going to the PCAM in person. They had done one online during the pandemic, which is not the same.
Yeah.
And they have this competition called the Bag of Tricks.
Okay.
Where you're given a paper bag full of random crap, and you have the weekend of the convention to come up with a magic routine using as many of those items in the bag as you can.
Oh, okay. I can see where the creativity came into play.
So the routine I came up with was an insane idea.
What was in the bag?
Oh my goodness! Like there was a single playing card. There was
just one.
Yeah, just one. Okay. There was the paper bag itself, which I ended up using. A couple of stickers, a pen that had the ink removed.
Okay.
So it was just the tube. There was a little rubber ducky.
Okay.
A bunch of just random weird stuff, and you have to come up with.
Was it the Tree of Hearts?
No, it was.
It's not that group at all, no?
No, it was the Queen of Spades.
Oh, okay.
It would have been funny if it was the Three of Clubs.
Yeah.
Which coincidentally is Penn and Teller's favorite card. Every time they do a card trick, they try and use the Three of Clubs.
Okay.
Because it shows up well on camera on stage as well. Easy to see even from a distance. Yeah.
Very nice.
So it was the routine that I did for that, which ended up winning the Bag of Tricks. And a bunch of the members of the Fraser Valley Magic Circle were there as well.
Yeah.
And they nominated me for that routine. Because you can nominate any member that you have seen perform that year, even outside the club, for a creative performance. And then they voted on it, and I got it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But yeah, like I can't ever repeat it because it was essentially like not improvising, but coming up with a routine that used every single item in that bag.
Can you explain the trick and what you did?
I can.
A little bit?
I can. There's a very old magic trick called Second Sight.
Okay.
Where the magician has an assistant. The original version of it was a French magician who really created the style of magic as something to be done on stage in evening wear for an elite audience.
Yeah.
And he performed it with his son, who would wear a blindfold. And then Robert Houdin, the French magician, father of modern magic, they call him, would go out into the audience and ask for items to be borrowed. He wouldn't say what they were. Sometimes he wouldn't say anything at all. And nevertheless, his son, who was blindfolded, would be able to say what the item was. I got a random person from the audience. I put the paper bag over their head, and I started holding up items in front of the bag and asking them, what am I holding up?
And they were able to guess it?
And they got them right.
Fuck off.
The method I used, I didn't...
You have to get the book and look it up.
Well, I didn't think it would work.
Oh my God.
Honestly thought I would lose this competition, especially since I was following someone who used the items to do a perfect impersonation of someone else who was famous at the conference. Yeah. And I was like, oh God, I have to follow him. I was last in the competition, and I do this thing. And at first, everyone had got the same playing card. So when I showed the playing cards, you know, the guy was able to guess, like, what playing card am I holding up?
Yeah.
Sure. Then I'd bring up a little candy wrapper. I'm like, all right, what am I holding up now? And I'm crinkling it so he can hear. And he's like, candy wrapper? I'm like, correct. Yeah. And the magicians are like, oh, okay, so this is a joke one. And then I start holding up stuff and saying, okay, what am I holding up now?
This is the pen.
Yeah. I'm like, what is this made of? Plastic? And what shape is this? It's a circle, and now you can feel every magician in the audience kind of leaning forward.
Scratching their heads. Yeah.
What? And then at the end of it, every paper bag in the competition has a wild card item. Okay. A random item that no one else has.
Okay.
So there's no way that this guy...
Or the audience can know what's coming, yeah.
So I hold it up, and it's like, this is the final object. What is it? And he gets it right. People went nuts. My mouth was dry. I was shaking, and I was just like, I can't believe that this just worked. But I can never ever do it again.
Oh my God.
Because it was specifically contingent on just that atmosphere, the items that I got in that bag, and how everything worked out.
That's amazing.
So
that's amazing. So Rob, in this podcast, we do our own little magic, you could say. It's not really, it's just a game.
Sure.
All right. You can put that one to the side for now, or down. Yeah. So the whole podcast is based around a pint of Guinness. That's what we're drinking today. And thanks to the Irish Header for allowing us to use this space. The game originally is called Split the G, or you could also known as Split the E, because the podcast is Split the E, where we split the entertainment of Vancouver. So you have lovely pints here, right? So your first gulp that white line has to go here. Okay?
In a single gulp?
In one gulp, and then back down.
Christ.
You right? That's good?
All
right. Cheers.
Cheers. Didn't even clear it.
Me neither.
Oh.
I felt it.
I only took the one gulp.
It's all right though.
All right. Well, I'll keep going later.
Yeah. But so you have the magic, and you're doing a load of shows. August, or geez, I'm in the different months and all. June 3rd.
Yeah, June 3rd.
The Art of Drag.
The Art of Drag. I'm performing a close-up walk-around magic for people who were there to see the art.
And that's with Phyllis Hull.
Yeah. Phyllis Hull, who was
had him on the show.
Earlier, yeah. I had Phyllis on my show as well.
Brilliant.
One of the longest show I've been doing. Yeah, I've been doing it for over 3 years now.
Unreal.
It's called the Parlor Magic Show.
Yeah.
And it's basically a magic variety show. I've done it at a bunch of different venues around. It keeps moving around.
Yeah.
I started it in January of 2020. Right.
Brilliant.
In the back room of Jaeger's bar downtown. R.I.P. Didn't survive the pandemic.
Oh no.
But they had a lovely back room there, and it was just pay what you want. And I invited friends of mine who I wanted to see on the show, who were magicians and variety performers, just so that people in Vancouver had a place to see magic publicly, because there was no show.
Yeah.
Right. It was inspired by a show I saw and that I participated in when I was in England, right? We can get into it later, but I eventually left academia and was focusing more on performing magic.
Yeah.
And there was this show called the Magician's Showcase. Happened in the function room above a pub in like North London.
Yeah.
Finley Park, I think. And it was just every month I would come and I would do the same set. And I learned more about performing magic and getting it tweaked and working a set for an audience.
For an audience, yeah.
Just I went for one entire year, bang, bang, bang. Every month I did the set.
Did you find it harder to do it every month, and now that you're more consistent, it's more like just flowing with you?
No, specifically because I used the show as an opportunity to work on new material.
Oh, brilliant.
So and I made a goal for myself to always try something new. Now, when I first started in the back of Jaegers, I just did whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this. I don't know if anyone's going to come.
Yeah.
I'm just doing it for fun. We did 3 shows, and then the pandemic happened. Shut down my entire industry.
Yeah.
Gone. No one's hiring magicians to perform, but I also work in tourism. I worked on the Rocky Mountaineer, the tourism train. Shut down for an entire year, right? Can't do shit.
And you're also a voice actor.
Well, I've been trying to get into that industry more.
Yeah. Since the pandemic?
Yes, I started as something like, I started seriously looking into it. Like, okay, well, this is something that I can do without having to be in a room with other people necessarily. So it's at least a little pandemic proof.
Unreal.
Although it's not AI proof, as we can see with AI voices.
ChatGPT, yeah.
Right? Some of the robot voices are incredible. Eventually, when the pandemic was low, I was able to start doing socially distanced versions of the show back in.
Can you do magic through, like, I seen one show, a comedy show through Zoom?
Yes.
Could you do magic through Zoom?
You can, and I did 2 Zoom shows.
How did it go?
I fucking hated it.
I watched a comedy show, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
You need to be in that space.
Yeah, I'm not able to get the live feedback.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't necessarily see everyone all at once. People are turning off their cameras.
Yeah.
There's weird time delay issues sometimes.
100%. Even if I FaceTimed you, that conversation isn't the same as me and you here right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at its heart, magic is an interactive art form, and if things get in the way of that interaction,
there's like, oh no, that's trick photography or anything like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I did one Zoom show for like a Christmas party, and it went okay. Like I found some tricks I liked that I could do even interactively. Like there was one where like I give people instructions and they bring their own deck of cards, and the trick still functions through the camera. But I watched other magicians doing this, and it, like, in order to make it good, you basically had to turn it into a television show.
Yeah.
You have to have high production values. You have to have people who are helping with the camera
nearly
movement.
Explosions.
You have to have good audio quality, and you're basically producing your own television show.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not why I got into this. I got into this because it's a live art form where I get to interact with people in person. And so the second and last online show I did was called A Fond Fuck Off to Virtual Shows, and Fuck Off was scratched out and replaced with Farewell. And so the entire show was themed around how frustrating it is to do things online.
That's
like there was one thing where there was this joke that was going around that like doing Zoom calls is exactly like having a seance. It's like, are you with us, Susan? Susan, if you're with us, can you make a sign? And
can you turn your camera on, please?
So I used magic techniques to recreate like a seance as if it was happening through Zoom. So it's just like, you're going to be our Zoom ghost, and I have here a very old tablet, and I bring out a chalkboard slate.
Oh, okay.
Like the kind that school children used in the Victorian era, which were used to communicate in spirit seances,
Can I ask you this question? Because I was thinking about this. I was like, okay, he's a magician and he does magic. What do you or have you ever done black magic? Or is it? Do you believe in black magic?
So I have an interest in occultism in a sense. Like I do occasionally do tarot card readings.
Okay.
I collect tarot cards. I have a collection of books about like occultism. I've read Aleister Crowley.
I've heard of that name.
Yeah, Aleister Crowley was known as the most wicked man in England. He was what I guess you could call a black magician.
Yeah.
He was a super weird dude who was famous in England for like practicing the dark arts and writing a prolific amount of books about topics like sex magic. Magic, of course, spelled with a K at the end. But ridiculous nonsense, basically. So,
does that make it more sexier, does it?
I don't know. He had a lot of, I think he referred to them as concubines.
Okay.
Gross man. But like, so to be clear, I don't believe in black magic.
Okay.
I don't believe in that like really spiritual realm. But I think that tools of divination, like tarot cards or the I Ching or other oracles, still have value because they use symbols that evoke imagery and spark thought in our minds.
Is that connected to your trick that you got the guess this with the bag over your head? Is it similar? No?
Not at all.
Oh, okay, fuck it. I thought
You're not going to figure out how it's done. Don't even worry about it. Stop trying. No.
Where's that book? I want that book.
So like when I do a tarot card reading, just like something like simple 3 cards, like past, present, future. You know, where have you come from? What's on your mind right now? And what's one way you could approach it, right?
Yeah.
And so I use them as a way of structuring a conversation, right? If I really have no idea of how to solve a problem I'm having, don't even have a clue of how to approach it, or am having trouble sorting through my own thoughts, turn a card. What does this imagery spark me? I know what this card is supposed to mean. Does that lead to any associations in my mind? I'm doing the same when I'm reading for other people.
Yeah.
It's essentially like, here's a bunch of random pictures.
Just to give him a chance.
Maybe it'll spark something. What does this remind you of? Oh, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
A structured conversation focused on like solving whatever problem or sorting out whatever thought you're having. So that part of it really interests me. I think that has value. I think it's interesting how that works.
Yeah.
And so I have done work as a tarot card reader. You know.
Unreal.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
I anagram my last name and perform as a Zestak, which sounds like a ooh, this is a.
Where's the magic carpet?
I was raised religious. I was raised Catholic.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, and Polish, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Catholics and drinking culture.
I know. Yeah, 100%. Right. Jesus.
And the overwhelming sense of guilt. You've been to confession recently?
No.
Father, it's been several years since my last.
Oh, you bold boy.
I don't know if there's enough Hail Marys to cover all
I
this.
know, yeah.
But honestly, learning magic, at the same time I was being a voracious reader of books, getting exposed to a lot of things in science fiction, philosophy, science books, and learning magic. And I learned there's this Canadian magician named James Randi, who was a magician who started using his magic to debunk things.
Oh.
He went on television, and you've heard of Uri Geller?
It rings a bell, yeah.
He's the super famous performer who can bend spoons with his mind, apparently.
Yeah.
And he'd been on places, he'd go on Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
And like demonstrate his amazing powers. People all over the world were like swearing that they were bending spoons with their mind. And Johnny Carson was a hobbyist magician. He loved magic. He performed magic, growing up. He did some of it in his show as that, he would put an envelope and divine the punchline that was written inside without having to look at it, and then come up with the joke that led to that punchline. Bits like that. But he really thought that Uri Geller was using magic to accomplish his apparent psychic feats. And so he brought on his friend James Randi, this Canadian magician who was becoming known as a debunker, to come on the show and basically demonstrate how you could accomplish everything that Uri Geller did with basic magic technique. And also set up tests for Uri Geller, things that he claimed he could do. And he's like, okay, well, if you can know where water is, one of these 3 identical cylinders has water in it. The other 2 are empty.
Okay.
Can you tell me which one? You know, and Uri Geller is like, sorry, I can't do it. I just can't do it, you know. And people who believe still believe. People who were on the fence maybe thought, huh. And so I started feeling the same way. Like, my parents tell me that I used to want to be a priest.
No
I
way.
was an altar boy. I went to church
yeah.
all the time. Like, I read the Bible as a kid. But it was like learning science, learning how the world works could be explained through natural means, and then learning how
Magic
inexplicable things,
Yeah.
things that can't be explained, magical experiences,
Yeah.
can also be explained by magic tricks.
Oh wow!
And then I was like,
that's
oh.
like what I'm just thinking now is like in Ireland, it's a big thing where it's like the 7th son of a 7th son
Right?
has magic tricks or is spiritually enhanced or whatever you want to call it. You know, there's a butcher that we use. He's like a faith healer. He's not particularly I thought he was, but he's not a 7th son of a 7th son. But what he does is, if you have like a sore back or a bad knee or something wrong with you, you go see this butcher, and he has a clothes hanger, and he waves it up and down, and he is sweating, and he is really hot, right? But let's say it's like this, and it's perpendicular to the ground, and wherever you're sore, you don't tell him. You just go, I have a sore back, right? I had a sore back, so he would go up and down, and it would drop.
Oh, the dowsing.
Just
dowsing,
like
yeah.
he was divining water.
Yeah.
And then he would like crick you, and then 2 days later, you're back to normal.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm on the verge, but I'm also on the fence. You know what I mean?
Right?
Yeah.
There's so many like truly remarkable things that happen in the world, and I'm comfortable just being like, oh, I don't know how that's done. There's no explanation. There might be one. It might have happened through natural means. It might have happened through supernatural.
Yeah.
We have no fucking way of
We have
knowing.
no, and
Unless someone is willing to be put to the test, and that's a stressful situation for everyone.
Yeah.
But like, you know, it's okay for some things to be inexplicable, and I'm comfortable just believing like most things have a natural explanation. For those that don't, they're probably natural, but even if they aren't, I have no way of...
Let's enjoy the mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mysteries are fun. That's
Yeah.
why people like magic.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean, the magic is interesting because there's a central tension between knowing, like the magician essentially tells you, I'm doing this using regular human physical means.
Yeah.
But you still get to experience something that feels impossible.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting tension, like of like knowing something is impossible, but also rationally knowing, no, this person who says they're just doing it for real has done it.
Boom.
Right?
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
is super fun.
It is, yeah, it is. Do you have any more magic tricks in your bag, or do you want to do another magic trick?
I can show you something, yeah. This, so I was talking about Joe.
Yeah, with the coin.
He gave me a coin, right? This is it.
No way.
I've had it for...
So this coin looks like a really big toonie,
Yeah. I've got a real toonie.
or a €2.
You can see them for...
Oh yeah, we'll show it to the camera.
There they are for comparison. That's the real toonie. This is the coin that Joe gave me. I've had this for over 20 years.
All right. Is that the Queen Elizabeth on it?
Sure is.
All right.
Hasn't been replaced yet. And you can see that like this coin's a little shinier, a little bigger, a little thicker. It rolls across the knuckles really well. It
I'd say
fits my hand perfectly.
Yeah.
Joe gave it to me just as a gift. I think it used to be a keychain. You can see where he's sort of...
Oh, you
sawn
filed it
off.
down. Yeah.
I've had it ever since. And it's always been just the perfect coin for my hands. And so the first trick I ever learned was this basic, like, coin vanish.
No way. And the coin is gone.
Yeah. There you go.
That's brilliant. But where did it go? Is it behind my ear? Oh, there we go.
That's something we do for every kid. People love it.
Yeah,
But yeah, you know, the first trick that I ever learned with a coin.
And the one that brought you back, that captured your attention in school too. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. That's really, really cool. Do you carry that? Do you carry a deck of cards on you everywhere you go?
The coin is always in my wallet. You know, for someone who doesn't believe in superstition, you know, keep that coin in my wallet.
Yeah.
I usually have a deck of cards. It's always in my bag. But if I forget my bag at home, don't have it. But I can usually do magic with stuff that people can give me. Like if I've got access to some napkins, a pen, I can borrow a coin or a deck of cards. Like I can do something.
Brilliant.
It's just a handy skill to have, you know.
That's fantastic. So Rob, you have shows coming up. We touched on the Art of Drag. We've also the 4th of June.
On the 4th of June, I'm performing at Passaparola.
Yeah.
Which is an Italian lounge.
Yeah.
Upstairs above Roba de Mati in Kitsilano.
Okay.
So it's at like, I don't know, Cyprus first-ish area. And it's a little Italian sort of cocktail and cheese bar. They do burrata.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be performing magic there. I'm June 4th and June 25th as well.
And then you're going.
It's free for people who are there. Like you
you're
just book a
going.
table.
Yes, that's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And then you're going all across to Toronto and with this Fringe
Going to
show.
Montreal. I'm flying out in just a couple of days, June 7th.
Yeah.
I'm there for almost 2 weeks, June 7th to 20th.
Yeah.
I'm performing between June 9th and 17th at
Brilliant.
Le Ministère as part of the Montreal Fringe Festival.
Yeah.
In July, I'm going to the Regina International Fringe Festival. And I'm coming back to Vancouver in September for the Vancouver Fringe Festival.
Brilliant.
And
that's in Granville Island, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
I
brilliant.
haven't been assigned my venue yet, so we'll see where I'm going. But
Cool.
I have done the Vancouver Fringe once before. Again, October 2020, smack dab in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So the show I'm doing is a version of that show. I wrote this show, and then the pandemic happened, and they decided to still do a mini Fringe.
Yes. Yeah.
And I had to rewrite the entire show, redesign it to be fully socially distanced, so that participants did not touch any props except ones that were sanitized immediately before the show, and no one was within 6 feet of each other. And anytime I have to come up close, it's between a plexiglass barrier.
How could you even do card tricks?
How the fuck do you get
Jesus
a card
Christ,
trick, right?
yeah.
So I somehow managed to do it, especially thanks to the help of my director and magic friend, the person that I learned and met on Granville Island, Travis Bernhardt. Huge shout out to Travis Bernhardt.
Yeah.
And also Eduardo, who was the production manager on the thing. We created this plexiglass barriers on either sides of a table so that spectators could sit on either side and I could do the card trick there. I found ways of getting people to select cards by just showing them one by one. No one touches anything. We still ended up sanitizing a bunch of stuff, like between every single show, reprinting and writing new envelopes for every single show for one of the effects. So now I get to do the show the way I wanted to do it.
Oh, right.
I've gone back to the original script, I've tweaked it, I've designed an entirely new effect in it, and it's fully interactive, and I'm super excited to like do the show as it was in my head.
Oh, I can't. I'm looking forward. I'll be there, 100%.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Brilliant.
Rob, thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Cheers.
Cheers. So you have Instagram, social media handles?
Mm-hmm. You can find me on Instagram at Rob Teszka Performs. Teszka is spelled T-E-S-Z-K-A. There's that Polishness.
Yeah.
We use sibilants as if they're vowels.
Yes.
You can find me on Facebook, Rob Teszka Magic. which is also my website, robteszkamagic.com. If you want to find out more about the Parlor Show, which happens every month in Vancouver, parlormagic.show. And Parlor was spelled with a U the correct way.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again.
Oh,
and thanks for showing me
my pleasure.
some
Thank
bar
you.
magic.
Cheers.
Brilliant.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. God bless. Thanks for watching the podcast. Please like, share. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Unreal.